So I once spent a month climbing in the Andes, carrying a PVC pipe full of my own poo. Now, I'm well aware that TEDx is normally the place for intellectual conversations, and I may be one of the very few, if not the only TEDx speaker to open up with a poo story, but nonetheless, here we are. And this is how it works. I was on an expedition to climb a mountain called Aconcagua, which is the highest peak on the South American continent. Indeed, it's the biggest hill anywhere on the planet outside of the Himalayas. And part of the deal is you require a permit to climb it. So you pay your money, you get your permit, and they give you a PVC pipe. I said, what's the pipe for? He said, sir, you just signed a permit that said you'll leave no waste behind. That means no waste behind. Now, this isn't a major problem when you're at 7,000 metres above sea level and everything kind of snap freezes fairly quickly. It is slightly more of a concern when you climb down and spend the last 3 days hiking out through the Rio Watkins Valley, which is about 30 degrees, and things defrost. Nonetheless, you get to the trailhead and you go back to the ranger station and you return your permit and the pipe. Mr. Watkins, how long were you climbing for? 30 days. Here is my pipe. And they weigh it. And if it's about the right weight for the time you were there, then you're free to go. And if it's underweight, they fine you because they assume that you perhaps have left something behind. And if it's overweight, they ask you to stand there and the office staff come out and you get a round of applause and certificate for being an overachiever, and away you go. True story. I've been very fortunate over the last few decades to spend time in very weird places doing very weird things. And unbelievably, the poo story is kind of just the tip of the iceberg. I didn't tell you about the time that I drank a shot of whiskey in a bar in the Yukon, which doesn't sound exciting until you realise the shot of whiskey had a preserved human toe in it. No one believes me when I tell that story, but that's the pub, the Downtown Hotel in Dawson. Yes, prepare yourselves. The next photo is of a preserved human toe. Here it comes. There it is. Away it goes. And because no one believes me, here's a video of me actually drinking my shot of whiskey with toe as garnish. Ooh. Now, you get a certificate, and I think the point of the certificate is so that you never have to go through the ordeal again ever in your life. But to be honest, over the last 2 decades of doing weird things in weird places, after either racing across it, climbing up it, or just generally spending a lot of time being really cold and miserable, I get asked the same question. Why? Why do you do these things? Why spend months in a hotel that looks like that, where the fancy bathroom looks like that? Why climb mountains that are so big and so difficult that sometimes not everyone comes home? Why push yourself to the absolute limit, physically, mentally and emotionally? Why do you do it? Now, there's an easy answer to this, the flippant answer, where people go, oh, I climbed it because it was there. And I hate that answer. And I think it fails on a number of levels. It does a disservice to the sheer volume of work and sacrifice and discipline and effort that it takes to see these adventures to their conclusion. I think it's disrespectful to the people who make those sacrifices, put in that work, and then potentially through no fault of their own, fail anyway. And lastly, it devalues the very reason we need to go out and have these adventures in the first place. Why do I think we need to go out and have these adventures? We all want a great story to tell. And often we need to tell it to no one other than ourselves. I believe many of us, if not all of us, have that quiet voice inside that tells us we could be doing more. There is more to what we are capable of. If we could just find the courage, if we could just clear the roadblocks and find the path, we could go out and have that great story of the time we did that thing. And keep in mind, adventure doesn't have to be climbing Everest or crossing the Arctic. It just needs to be a vast divergence from your everyday today. It might be running a marathon, or travelling to a foreign country, or quitting a job, or writing a book, whatever it is to you. To be a great adventure for you, it only needs really to fulfil 2 requirements. There must be a degree of risk, a risk of failure, and it must stoke a great fire within you. So if you'll bear with me for the next few minutes, I'd like to take my last few decades of adventuring and distill it down into a couple of secrets and a fundamental truth that I hope will clear the path for you to go out and have your own adventures. Now, the first pushback I always get is, hey, Paul, it's easy for you to say. It's easy for you to say, hey, get a packback that weighs more than you do and climb uphill for a month. Go out and make new friends and meet different and interesting people. Go so long without a shower that the only people who will talk to you are not people at all. It's a cool story, mate. Great photos. But I'm not you. Good. Then who are you? How we define ourselves, how we value ourselves, and how we allow society to value us has implications that we're often just too busy, too tired, or too blinded by the lights to see. Let me explain. Now, everyone thinks this is a photo of me in primary school. It's just me without a beard. It's the only difference. We've all been asked that question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Now, for this little guy, he wanted to be an architect. And then he got a bit older and discovered Indiana Jones. And he definitely wanted to be an archaeologist, until his career advisor explained that that movie wasn't really an accurate depiction of what the career would look like. And so he decided he wanted to be a doctor. In the end, he isn't any of those things. He's a vast array of other things. It did occur to me in putting this together, though, when we ask young people, what do you want to be when you grow up? They give you a business card. We give a job title versus what may actually be more accurate. What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be loved and valued and cherished. Maybe that's a more accurate answer. And yet we give a job title or a business card answer as if that's the pinnacle of existence. Society's in a very mad rush to kind of categorise us and stratify us, put us in a box and label us. And we use jobs to do that. Tell people what you do. We've all done that thing where you meet and greet and they ask you what you do. Hey, Paul, what do you do? I'm a pharmacist, which is true. And based on that, you can see the wheels turning and they make these assumptions about your degree of education and your income level and the car and the house and the whole box and dice. You give them a different answer and you get a different set of assumptions being made. Hey, Paul, what do you do? I'm a forklift driver, which is also true. And you get the different level of assumptions again about education and income and so forth. What's really interesting is when you give them an answer that doesn't have a pay pack attached. Paul, what do you do? I'm a stay-at-home dad, which is also true. Then the wheels come to a grinding halt. Because now I don't know where to fit you in the hierarchy anymore. I don't know what you earn, so I don't know where to place you. And all of a sudden it gets very difficult for people to figure out what box they should place you in. If you allow yourself to get trapped in that box of I'm my job, I'm my business card, that leads to what I call the crisis of faith. I'd love to go out and have this adventure, but I couldn't do that because I'm just a dad or a mum or an accountant, or I wouldn't fit in, I don't deserve it, I have the athletic ability of a three-toed sloth, I'm just not going to be right for that. Now, all those things may seem true to you in your mind at that moment, but you're not a finished product. You're not a static rock in a river. You are a work in progress. That leads us to the first secret. You are under no obligation to be the same person you were yesterday, or last week, or last year, or when you came here in the foyer. You have the right to change. All of it. Beliefs, dreams, hopes, desires, underwear, the whole lot, whenever you feel the need. And that leads me to the second secret. People say, okay, I get it, maybe I can change into something else to become this person who can have that. But let's be honest, Paul, the people who go out and do the things you do, they're special. They're talented. They're gifted. No, they're not. There are no superheroes. Allow me to explain. This is also me, super nerd. This is me in year 12. And by super nerd, I mean, chess club, debate, theatre club, all the good things. Sporting ability was kind of close to zero. My chosen sport was cross-country running. A, you didn't have to get picked for a team, awesome. And B, all you had to do was stick one foot in front of the other and not fall over publicly, which I could generally do. This is also me. This is inside the Arctic Circle. It's taken in 2017 in Canada, and I'm dragging a sled behind me that has all my survival gear, food and clothing to last me hopefully for 8 days. This was during the 66-33, 600-kilometre unsupported ultramarathon inside the Arctic Circle. One of the toughest races in the world. And I've attempted it twice, because some people have to learn the hard way. There is a big disconnect between those two people. People who haven't met me read my bio of the mountains I've climbed and the races I've done, and they expect to meet some kind of Chuck Norris, Bear Grylls hybrid. And then I walk out, and they're like, it kind of looks more like Daniel Radcliffe's body double off Harry Potter. He's a lot less Chuck Norris and a whole lot more boy wizard. I don't get the connection. And there is a big disconnect, and I love that because it allows us to have a conversation about the fact that I'm not an elite athlete. I don't have some special gift. I'm not an Olympian. I'm not an astronaut. I'm a nerdy dad from a country town of below average height and poor eyesight. Which kind of makes me normal. And if a normal person can go out and do some of these weird things, hopefully that allows people to start thinking about what they could do as other similarly normal people. If you get past those first two secrets, if you start to realise you can value yourself by different metrics, that you're not in a little box and caged in and can only do those things, and if you realise that normal people go out and do abnormal things as well, here's the last fundamental truth. If you go out and attempt these things, you will fail. Now, I know that's stunningly uplifting as the last speech of the evening, but bear with me. In 2008, I attempted to climb Aconcagua. That was the poo pipe story. And I failed. In 2010, I went to attempt Denali, which is the highest peak on the North American continent and one of the hardest of the fabled 7 summits. And I failed. And in 2017, I attempted the 6633 Arctic Ultra, a race that has a failure rate of 80%. In fact, in the first 7 years of its existence, only 11 people made it to the finish line. And I failed. I barely made it halfway. What's important here is that I have failed as much as I have succeeded. People think that failure makes you less, that you must be wrong or not deserving. And that's not correct. Failure actually makes you more. Failure gives you two things you didn't have before, knowledge and experience. And you can choose to take those things and write another chapter. It's okay if you want to close the book and leave it there, but if you want to move forward and write a new chapter, you now have new tools. Failure doesn't make you less. It gives you the opportunity to be more. I know that because in 2009, I went back to South America to attempt Aconcagua again and was one of only 2 people on our expedition team to stand on the summit at 22,300 feet above sea level. In 2011, I went back to North America, into Alaska and Denali, and I dragged my sled uphill in freezing cold conditions for 19 days until I stood on the summit. And in 2019, I went back to the Arctic Circle to attempt again the 6633. And after dragging my sled for 195 hours and 41 minutes, not only did I cross the finish line, but I became one of only 7 people on the planet to claim the title of winner of the 6633. What happens next? Well, this is where we throw the ball from the court back to you. My suggestion is this. Start valuing yourself by metrics that are important to you. You're not your job title, you're not your business card, you're not what your parents think you should be or your friends think you should be. Value yourself by things that are important to you. I'm a stay-at-home dad and I love it. It fills my life with joy and happiness and the very, very unique pain that comes from standing barefoot on a piece of Lego that you did not see. The parents understand. Understand that there are no superheroes. There are just normal people who go out and do abnormal things. They're not afraid to fail. They're prepared to be disciplined and prepared to do the work. And those are not genetic gifts. You and I are equally qualified to do any of those 3 things. So understand that normal people go out and do these amazing things as well. Give yourself permission to fail because it will happen. And allow yourself to understand that failure doesn't make you wrong or less. It makes you more. It gives you knowledge and experience. And you can use that to develop yourself into something more. So from here, I tell you, choose your own adventure. Go forth and have that adventure. It may not be climbing a mountain carrying a PVC pipe full of your own poo, but it will be better. It'll be an amazing story because it will be your story. And I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.